Hi guys, Nick Thomas here at the Academy of Historical Fencing. Now, like a lot of people around the world, I am currently locked down, and therefore this is a perfect opportunity to get some HEMA at home training videos done. So I'm going to put out a range of videos that are, for now, mostly going to be based around British military swordsmanship, so the sabre, broadsword and spadroon. Possibly some other things as well, we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to keep up this regular series so that you, whilst you're stuck at home, have something to do, and even once this all blows over, there'll be some useful sort of home training videos to be done. Right, so first of all, during being stuck in, if you at all can get any exercise in, and you should be able to, then do. And when I say if you can, I mean if you're healthy enough to do so. Most important thing you can do from anyone's perspective right now is stay active. So just do any exercise you can in the home. If you can go for walks, that's fine. Follow your government's advice and that kind of thing. But at home, personally, I'm a big fan of bodyweight exercises and kettlebells, and also heavy bag work and stuff like that. But yeah, bodyweight exercises, I'm not the authority on that, but I love doing them. And if you want to know more about that, go and look on YouTube. There are loads and loads of great videos on that. Anyway, on top of any other exercise you can possibly do, what can you do that is specific to HEMA? In terms of learning and conditioning, because for some of you, you might be regular practitioners, you just want to keep your body up and ready so that when we go back, you're still in good form. And some of you might maybe be taking this up now. I know we've had emails, people want to come and join the club in the last few weeks, and we're completely shut down. So what can you do? Well, the absolute most important thing from a HEMA perspective is that you keep your legs going, and that you maintain some simple body mechanics in terms of mostly cutting exercises. So essentially you're moving in a way that is representative of how you move when you actually fence. And unsurprisingly, that's going to revolve around simple footwork exercises, cutting exercises, that kind of thing. If you're lucky enough to have a partner, a training partner, living with you right now, which I am, for example, that's great, but I know a huge amount don't. So the majority of the videos that I do will be based around solo exercise. Now, lots of people have different amounts of space, and so that's going to change basically what you can do and how you can do it. Personally, I'm going to be doing this outside of my garden, where I can swing sabres no problem whatsoever. And these exercises will be best done with a training sword that is, basically what you use when you actually fence, for the sake of actually strength conditioning, getting used to it, whatever else. But if you don't have the space, because you're indoors or don't have garden space, whatever else, use something else. So the cold steel training axe, for example, obviously it's a hell of a lot shorter than any of the training swords that we use, and suddenly you can swing this around in most interior spaces. Watch all the lamps. This works quite well, and obviously it has a discernible edge, just like a sword. So you can go through your cutting exercises absolutely fine with a training axe. These, what they call the toy pirate swords, you can buy them on eBay and Amazon for about $1.99. They're really, really cheap, but they have a hard core for the first half. They're actually surprisingly good to mess around with at home for saber exercises. Now obviously they're way underweight, but they do actually grip quite well, and you've got discernible flats and edges. So although you're not going to get the kind of strength and conditioning that you would using a realistic training weapon, they actually do allow you to go through cuts and things like that really effectively without destroying the house around you. So that's really good. And also, even smaller again, use a training knife. You can absolutely run through your cutting mechanics with a training knife. And anything else household that you can find. You could even use a spatula, dog ball thrower. I like using that when I'm out with the dog. So there's all kinds of things you can use. Absolutely don't use anything sharp. During these exercises, you're either going to be learning something new or doing repetition, and you're going to get tired. Using a sharp for those kind of things is just asking for trouble. So do not use anything sharp. So use a blunt training sword or something else that is similar. Okay, so let's get on to the exercises. I said the most important thing is your footwork and your basic cutting mechanics. So with your footwork, let's look at the stance. Let's go with a typical sabre stance, or a British military stance, working from Roworth. So just turn your front foot towards your opponent or your would-be opponent and just slump into your guard. So keep your back straight, but just drop down, just lower down onto your knees a little bit so you've got a bit of spring in your knees. And weight your body weight to the back foot slightly so that you can very easily move that front foot both in lunge and slip. Right, now at this stage the best thing you can do is just use your normal steps. So single steps, forwards and backwards, and this will keep you moving. You don't need to bounce around. It is a flat-footed system, so just move fluidly around. You can add a bit of speed and you can do it over and over. You can put weight belts on if you want, make it harder, but just do these exercises regularly, just moving up and down a small space, and it'll keep your legs moving. And then we can move into the lunge, which is the standard attacking step of the British military system. So it is absolutely vital that you learn it, use it, and iron out any bad habits. So, looking at the lunge here, you don't need a sword in hand to do this, not at all. Obviously, later on it'd be beneficial, but to learn the lunge and to exercise it and condition it, you don't need a sword, or at least to condition the body. Obviously, if you do it with a sword in hand, that's beneficial to the hand and the arm. So, with your lunge, let's make sure you're getting things right. First of all, make sure the sword or imaginary sword moves first. Then take your step and really iron out any bad habits at this stage. The bad habits, they creep in for all of us, especially when we're sparring and basically it's a heated exchange. Bad habits creep in, but when you're training, train it to be the best you can possibly be. So a few things. One thing, your back foot should remain flat. Don't let it slide or lift or anything like that. Keep that flat. It's a good foundation, it's part of the system. Front foot, make sure it remains pointing forwards. Everybody instinctively turns that foot in when they start and as they progress, because instinctively you walk with your feet in parallel, or relatively speaking. And it's not natural, therefore, to have this L shape effectively between the 2 feet. So make sure, look at that front foot when you're in guard, look at it when you're at the end of the lunge position, and when you recover, check it again. Make sure that the front foot points towards the opponent in all of these particular actions, and it will in most actions in this particular system. There aren't many exceptions to that. Good. Now, this offhand, according to Roworth's system, it should either be held up and thrown back or kept on the hip and thrown back. It's all about counterbalance. Some later systems just keep it on the hip even during the lunge. And in fact, some early systems do as well, if you look at my rapier, for example. So, your choice, have an experiment with the hand positions, but if you can do Roworth, do throw it back. If you do other systems, you can keep it on the hip as you please. Regular movement exercises where you move back and forth and lunge. This is a great way to condition your body. Just keep doing it over and over, and you can do a lot in a day, and it will keep you quite fit and quite strong actually if you do enough of them. But it'll certainly keep your body conditions well for doing lunges and this kind of footwork when you get back to your fencing. Now, we can also add in the advance and withdraw from Roworth, because it's a little bit more complex. It's not just a single step. Is that when you go forwards, you take a step forward with the front foot, the back foot comes up to a few inches from the front one, and then the front one carries on either to a guard or a lunge position. And when we withdraw, the back foot moves back, front foot comes back but not all the way to the back foot, and then the back foot carries on. That is more complex. If you want to throw it in, feel free, but at this stage I wouldn't worry too much about it. I would mainly focus on just moving back and forth and the lunge. Personally, Roworth's advance I use an awful lot because I'm shorter than most of my opponents, or a lot of my opponents anyway, so I use it for gaining distance, and that's what he says it is used for. So certainly add in the front one if you want to, but I wouldn't worry too much about the withdrawal at this stage. Now, as we've worked through that basic footwork, we want to get onto a good cutting mechanic. And in the past, I've shown the 6-cut drill, and the 6-cut drill is excellent. I've also shown the manual exercise that you see in the Angelo poster and in Roworth's book as well. And that is quite good, but that revolves around a very much stop-start. You do your cut, you come back into a guard. And the 6-cut drill just flows through from one cut to another. Now, what I'd like to do at this stage is just go back to basics, essentially, and something that often gets forgotten, and that is how Roworth initially teaches the cuts and the recoveries. And the recovery is the really important part, because so often people step into a cut and then they just basically do a lazy recovery when they're drilling or when they're sparring, for that matter. So Roworth is very specific on how you should do your recoveries. And you'll see initially how we start our cut. So when we're in an outside guard, we move over so that we're almost in an inside guard. Blade goes down the line of attack and then scoops back up, back into the outside guard. And this is a very fast recovery. And you see it's a nice rotational move. This action will massively condition your arm. If you just go and do this for 10 minutes or so, you will find some fantastic pressure put through your arm. You're really going to feel it's a good exercise. And do this often enough, you're going to gain great strength for using sabres. And yes, sabres do need a good amount of strength to use them. So going back to it, we want to, from our outside guard, bring the hilt over to almost the inside guard and then drop the blade, and make sure that your arm is at full extension when you make your cut. As a rule, you want to be at full extension for most of your cuts unless you specifically have a reason not to be. So again, outside guard, move it over to almost inside, drop the blade as you go to full extension, and then pivot it around in a circular motion, twirl it around back into the outside guard. And this is how you will cut and get to a recovery and a really safe guard really quickly, really fast. And notice that you can, from here, you can lift the blade slightly to give a snap in action when you begin it, which can telegraph to a certain degree, but that also can be used to feint against your opponent. So that's an interesting factor. So the cut one recovery is the easy one. Body mechanics wise, it's the easy one. If we move over to now doing cut two, we are going to go into inside guard. Then we are going to bring the hand over to outside, basically mirroring what we did before, drop the blade down the angle of attack, and then twist the wrist so that the palm faces up to the sky, and then the blade scoops around back into outside guard. Now this one, as I said, body mechanics wise is harder, but when people launch cut two, they don't always get back to a good guard particularly quickly. Now of course it would be quite common to do cut two and come straight to hanging guard, and that's fine, but it has some weaknesses, especially the outside arm here. Whereas when we do cut two and we twirl it around back into outside guard, we're protected, the guard's protecting us, it's a really good position to be in. So, in the inside guard position, rotate so you're almost in outside, drop the blade down the angle of attack whilst extending to full reach, and then rotate the palm up, twirl the blade around and back into outside guard. And you'll notice that the more curve you have on your blade, the more likely you are to hit yourself in the head with this one. So take it easy, take it slow, get used to using whichever blade you are using for it. And I definitely wouldn't recommend this one with some of the Shamshir type really extreme blades. But that is Roworth's standard recovery for cut one and cut two. And it will get you to a safe guard position really, really quickly. Now those two cuts, those in themselves are a fantastic exercise for practicing your cutting mechanics and conditioning your body to the fight. So I'd recommend doing them an awful lot. And Roworth does say that you can combine them into a figure of eight pattern. And this gives you a continuous training exercise that is, again, fantastic for conditioning strength. We can also start then including the lunge with your cuts. So lunge, make sure your sword lands at the point of contact at the extension of your lunge, and as you're recovering, you're getting back to guard as quickly as you possibly can. Now with the figure of eight exercise, again, the cut 1 version of the cut 1 part of it is really nice and smooth with body mechanics. The cut 2 one is slightly more awkward. Just keep trying it. Don't smack yourself in the head, and do it slowly for a while to make sure that you are getting the edge alignment, because it's very easy to turn onto the flat with this one, particularly as you start to speed it up. So there you have it. There's part 1 of the HEMA at home video. So this is all about just moving around lunge and cut 1 and 2, and some conditioning exercises that you can use, especially with the cutting mechanics there. And as far as British military swordsmanship goes, if you do a lot of these exercises, doing lots of lunges, doing lots of cuts 1 and 2, doing the figure of 8 drill, you will condition your body to work really well for the kind of system that Roworth is all about. So thanks for watching. I do hope you enjoyed the video. Obviously, with this crisis on, we're doing what we possibly can. We will continue to post up training videos as much as possible. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do so.